And I'm pretty sure the perfect answer at all times is basically like, who fucking wants to hear your answer? So it's like, who is listening and like what answer they want to fucking hear, basically, you know? Because like I don't fucking matter, you know what I mean? I don't fucking matter. Like if I'm going like, I'm like, yeah, if I'm in a situation, I'm like asking for assisted dying or whatever, like they're going like, it's not what we want to hear, dude. Like I don't want to fucking hear you talk about assisted dying. Like, go on, get out of here, bitch. And I'm like, and I'm going like, okay. Like, I'm like, all right. So I gotta like figure out how to give everybody else the answer they want to get when I'm like, you know, trying to get like the answer that I'm trying to get from them. So I'm like, okay, like, yeah. Because in my experience, it's not like I'm like, because like the logic in basically getting assisted dying and like successfully getting assisted dying is basically like, it's a safeguard. Like I made it. Like I was thinking about it a long time ago. I was like, it actually makes like a hell of a lot of sense. It makes like a ridiculous amount of sense. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna like shelve that idea because like I think like, you know, it's a little early as like a teenager to be thinking about assisted dying. So I was like, yeah, because like it's too early for that. So like basically maybe everybody's just a fucking teenager like me when I was a teenager going like, well, I can see what he's saying, but like, we can't do it right now. You know what I mean? Because when I was a teenager, I was like, yeah, fucking sign me up, right? And then I was like, yeah. So what about this assisted dying? And they're like, it's only for the terminally ill. So like, you have to have like some like you have to be in excruciating pain to be able to get it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not in excruciating pain from some like incurable disease, so like, I'm out of fucking luck. And I'm like, okay. So you know what I mean? I was like, I honestly gave it like. After hearing that I wasn't in some kind of like, I didn't qualify for fucking assisted dying like when I was a teenager, I was like, all right, like let's get to work, you know, let's make this world a better place. And then like I'm like, you know, I was basically trying to figure out how to make the world a better place, and then I think I did. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. And then yeah, to my knowledge I did that, you know. And then it's just like it's a continuous like thing of just like pushing, you know. And I'm like okay, like I'm like I'm really tired, and I'm not allowed to sleep, so that I'm really tired all the time, so that I make mistakes, so that like they can basically get me to create excuses for everybody else to keep me alive. That's what it's about. Like, pretty much at all times. It's like, if I'm losing my cool or whatever, it's just like, it's because like, yeah, one, my memory's been like fucking shot. And then like, because my memory's shot, I'm making stupid decisions. And then, yeah. So I don't know who's supervising. But they're not being obvious about being my supervisor, if that makes sense. So like, if it's my parents or whatever, they're just kind of just being like, oh, whatever, like and I'm like, okay, so like, you're not my supervisor then. So I'm like, okay, where did I come from if I didn't come from my parents? The hospital. So I'm like, hey, hospital, like, what's up? Like, you need some assisted dying. They're like, we don't do that, like, go away. And I'm like, do you want to go into the shelter system? Like, why don't you go to the shelter system? I'm like, I fucking did that, you know, like, I can report to you like how I performed at the shelter system, and then and then I did, and then they're like all my interactions with regards to the advice that they gave me are, to my knowledge, like they weren't like they weren't. I was in the building when I was telling them about stuff, but I wasn't like there was no sort of formal documentation. So I'm like okay, so like if there's no formal documentation, then they have a monopoly on like the answers that I gave. Which is okay, right? But at the same time, not okay, because like, you know, if I go somewhere else other than the hospital, then they have a monopoly on knowing about me prior to going into a different situation. And they actually have like collectively probably more memory storage capacity than like me. You know what I mean? Like, That's they're just like continuously just grabbing more and more information on me at all fucking times. And then like when I'm in a different situation, they're like, no,